Okay, Johnny, thanks very much for joining us today on Lisburn Distillery Television, making your debut on the show. Welcome back to Northern Ireland for another one. For some supporters who maybe follow the club, they're maybe not fully aware of your history with Lisburn Distillery. Do you want to give us a bit of a background as to how you first ever started following the Whites?
Yeah, I've sort of a long affiliation with Distillery in terms of back to when I was maybe 7, 8, 9 years of age. Back in the old First Division, going and watching the team. Probably not long after Paul Kirk had taken over as manager. He was the only manager. There was no one before him in my time, and I think he was relatively new at the stage. And yeah, it was one of those things that I've probably done most roles at the club over the years. I've been a ball boy, I've sold programmes, I've swept terraces. I did the club's UEFA licence application one year, coached at the mini soccer schools, went down and helped at the academy. Yeah, I've done pretty much all roles a lot of roles at the club over the years. So and probably over the course of maybe 10 years before I left Northern Ireland when I was sort of 18 to go to university, but in the sort of 10 years before that, I reckon it must be close to 500 games. There was definitely seasons where I didn't miss a single game, including friendly games. So from second week of July all the way through to the following May, it was week in, week out. Didn't matter whether we were at home to Ballyclare, away to Limavady. It was there. So it was a good 10 years. It was a footballing education, that's for sure.
From there, obviously, you went on to much bigger things. I mean, you've obviously travelled the world now through football. I mean, starting off going from coaching in Ireland, then going over to England, heading over to New York with the New York Red Bull, over from there to Ghana, from Ghana to Sierra Leone, where you started off with the academy and eventually became the manager of the national side in Sierra Leone. That was the one sort of jumped out for me, because I remember reading it and sort of saying, Johnny McKinstry, the national manager of the national team, and I'm thinking, whoa, this is a massive step. Was it a shock to you when you got that position?
It's funny, when I get asked that, it wasn't a shock. I felt I was the best person for the job. I was very pleased to get it and very honoured to be entrusted with that level of job. I was only 27 at the time, and so the idea of giving a 27-year-old the run of not just any national team, we're not talking about some small Pacific island here. Every single player in my national team of Sierra Leone was playing professionally in Europe. We had guys in the Premier League, we had guys in Serie A, we had guys out in America playing MLS. So this was a serious team. It wasn't some backwater, island. So it was probably a shock to a lot of people, but I knew there was 3 World Cup games left, and I sort of, when the manager resigned, and I was like, I'd been living in the country for 3 years. I knew the team because I'd been to all the home games in person. I'd watched all the away games on TV with our academy players, and I just felt there's no one will know this team better. And for me, just self-confidence, I didn't feel there would be a better coach to do the job, and I went in and sort of sold that to them in terms of my presentation of what I could do with the team. And a few days later, the phone call came through to offer me the position, and like I said, it was a great moment. I definitely sort of punched the air after the phone call, but it was more of a yes, got there, as opposed to wow, I can't believe it. I very much could believe it. I felt I was the right person for the job, and hopefully the work we did over the next 18 months and the success we have proved that I was the right person for the job.
Yeah, you did remarkably well. I mean, you took them up to their highest ever world rankings as a country, which was remarkable in itself. Obviously then, unfortunately, Ebola sort of thing struck at Sierra Leone. I mean, that must have been absolutely devastating for that situation.
Yeah, it's one of those times to live through. You sort of don't... It takes time to look back on a thing and say, wow, because in the moment you just get on with it. My whole sort of in my DNA is deal with it and get on with it, just keep moving forward. So when you're in the middle of what was a horrific situation with the Ebola outbreak, it was like, right, well, let's control the controllables. What can we do? What can we do to move forward? It's only when you look back on it and you think, wow, that was something unique that happened in the history of the world, was this devastating outbreak. And, let's be honest, there was more serious things that Ebola impacted than, a football team. Yeah. But, for us, it sort of completely derailed the football, because it made what was a very difficult job, it probably turned it into the impossible job. We had hopes of qualifying for the African Cup of Nations. We were in a tough group with Ivory Coast, Cameroon and DR Congo, and ultimately I only got the opportunity to go 2 games into that qualifying series. We played Ivory Coast, we played DR Congo, lost narrowly in both of them. DR Congo should have been a home game, but was played in Congo because of the outbreak. We couldn't play home games, and ultimately those two teams went on to finish first and third at the tournament itself. So you could see the quality we're up against, but it was a disappointing end. But there was no doubt that, as I say, we took them to the top 50 in the world. That's when you look now and they're down around 100 again, it shows you that we clearly had an impact there, and the players all really rallied together, and there was great character among that group, and a lot of players that we still as a staff keep in touch with.
From there you went over to Rwanda, and once again you seem to be sort of turning the corner for them as well. Things were on the up. Okay, one or two disappointing results, but things were all on the up, and then completely they sort of let you go as well. I mean, did that sort of disillusion you in terms of African football overall? I mean, that's two positions you were doing reasonably well at and been let go from both of them.
In football, I've learned you just keep putting one foot in front of the other. You just keep moving forward, and you can't control decisions that other people will make, whether they're club chairman or federation presidents or whatever it happens to be. When you look at the facts of the situation with Rwanda, we got to the quarterfinals of the African Championship, first time ever they got to the knockout stages, and we took the eventual champions, DR Congo, all the way to extra time. We're very unfortunate not to progress. We record win in a qualifying game of 5-0, first ever away win in the last 4 or 5 years, and we'd really made progress with them, but some people make strange decisions, and you only need to look at over the last few years in football, even here in the UK in the Premier League, Manuel Pellegrini wins the Premier League. 6 months later, it's announced he'll be leaving Manchester City at the end of the season. Jose Mourinho wins the Premier League. 6-7 months later, is sacked by Chelsea. Claudio Ranieri wins the most incredible Premier League in living or non-living memory, and 6 months later, 7 months later, is out of a job. So success doesn't guarantee anything in football, and you just have to sort of pick. It's disappointing in the moment that it happens, because you always build for longevity, even though you know that everything in football tells you that chances are you're going to be there less than 2 years. You build for 10 years, because that's the only way to have success. And if you get the 10 years, fantastic, you're a lucky man. But we know in football that chances are jobs are going to be 2 years at a time, if that. And you just dust yourself off and go for the next one again. It's like it's like an old boxer who doesn't want to get out of the ring. You just keep going.
Keep going. Coming back a bit closer to home then, obviously I know you keep still an eye on the distillery results and so forth. The club's a different club now than what it was when you left. We were a Premier League side back then. We're now sort of struggling a little bit in the Premier Intermediate League. Probably, in my eyes anyway, probably due down to finances playing a big part of it. Do you think it is possible to sort of have a team on very little budgets and succeed?
I think it's all about the atmosphere within a club. The thing is, and I have great respect for everyone working in the Irish League, whether it's at the Premier Intermediate level or in the Irish Premier League, because working with players 2 nights a week, or maybe a third, half session a week, it's so difficult to develop a team playing style and playing philosophy. A lot of it's about team spirit and, basics of the game. And so in that sense, if you can get players who are willing to work for each other, who when they come out to training after a full day's work for most of them, if not all of them, and they're enjoying it, and then they go out on a Saturday and they go and work, and regardless of the result, it doesn't sort of diminish their enthusiasm for the game. That's sort of the key to success at that level, because you can't do anything fancy because you don't have the time. And it's the same training sessions. You've got a player who's working a 9 to 5 and then a sat in traffic to get to training and all of that. So it's such a difficult job, and so the coaches and managers who get success for their team, it can be such fine margins. It really can be, because like I said, it's not like being at a full-time team where you're there every day. You've got all the facilities and everything. And look, the Irish League as a whole is very different to what it was 10, 15 years ago. I remember going through my coaching badges with some players who were coming to the end of their career in the Irish League in the late 90s, and without naming names, some of them were picking up £800, £1,000 a week for playing part-time football. And that's a bygone age. Nobody's paying that money now in the Irish League. And so back then everyone was going for broke. It was like the gold rush. It was like, get there as fast as you can. and a lot of teams have suffered for it. It's not just Distillery. You look at Portadown, you look at Glentoran, a number of teams have struggled in recent years because of maybe the overspending back then. So it's a different league now, which means the margins are finer, and it is possible. So if you get a good team spirit and a good group who are willing just to work and they're going out to play football because they enjoy it and they want to be better, then yeah, you can get success.
Finally, just Johnny, I mean, obviously, future-wise, you're probably not too sure yourself what it holds you, but are you sort of looking locally here? Are you looking into sort of the mainland, into Europe? Are you thinking about going back to Africa, or what's on the horizon?
Well, I'm based in London full-time at the moment, and really just getting to a lot of games in England, right at all levels, from Champions League down to Conference and the Under-23 sort of Elite Development League in England. And again, just, meeting people, having discussions. There's different opportunities in different parts of the world. People have sort of presented me with things here in the UK. I've spoken to some people out in the Americas. I've spoken to some people in Africa. I'm always someone who's very open. It's more about what the project is, and that word gets used in football a bit too much, really. But it's more, do the club have a plan? Because a lot of clubs don't. A lot of chairmen don't, and someone said to me when Bob Bradley left Swansea so abruptly, they said, someone who wasn't really a football person said, oh, but surely if a club have done due diligence, they would give a manager a fair amount of time. And I said, well, there's your problem, due diligence. Nobody does. Mm-hmm. The hiring nature of a lot of football clubs is so ad hoc that it's no wonder that it falls apart on a number of occasions. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it's about, I meet clubs, and sometimes it acts against me, is that I almost interview them. Okay. Because I want to know, is it somewhere where there's the chance of success? I don't want an easy job, but I want a job that you've got a chance to build something over at least a medium term. So yeah, I'm open to anything, really. It would be nice to be closer to family here, but equally I know in football, for every one manager that's in a job, you've got 50 who are looking for one, so it's a competitive market.
Okay, Johnny, listen, thank you very, very much once again for taking the time to come and speak to Lisburn Distillery TV, and we wish you all the best for the future.
No problem, thank you.